We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Andrew back on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I remain your host, Mark Angelides, and we continue to be joined by economics guru and editor, Andrew Moran. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for coming back.
Hello again.
So, with Trump's second term in office fast approaching, it seems that the biggest battle is going to be with the federal, well, one of the biggest battles. Of course, there are many battles about to be fought in this particular political war. But one of the biggest and most significant will be in the Federal Reserve. What's happening there?
Oh boy, I mean, get ready for some popcorn entertainment. I know everyone knows monetary policy is boring and that is just boring. But this is going to be really fascinating stuff to watch over the next 2 years. So the Federal Reserve, they recently cut interest rates. They had their usual post-meeting press conference, and Jerome Powell was asked point blank, if Trump asks you to resign, will you? He succinctly said, nope. And then somebody asked, what if Trump wants to fire you? And then Jerome Powell says, not permitted under the law. And now we're learning that the Wall Street Journal, they recently had an article, and they found in 2018, Jerome Powell was ready to take Donald Trump to court if Donald Trump wanted to actually follow through and firing him back before the pandemic. So this is now turning litigious, or actually potentially litigious, if Trump wants to, follow through on the completely kibosh on Jerome Powell and imposing somebody else he wants.
So what will that mean? I mean, we know that Jerome Powell's term, I think it expires in 2016. Anyway. Sorry, that's what I mean, 2016. Sorry, my time machine.
I know. It's 2016.
It was like yesterday, right? I mean, you had, Donald Trump heading for the White House? Nothing's changed, right? That's all the same. So, 2026, his term expires. Now, it seems to me that essentially Donald Trump wants to get as much done possible in the first 2 years because come the midterms, Democrats have an inbuilt advantage in much the same way that Republicans did this term round for the Senate. So there's a better than average chance at present that Democrats retake the Senate in 2026, which will essentially stymie many of the plans that he wants to achieve. So he can't do anything. It seems he can't do anything about Jerome Powell. It seems he has to get everything done within the next 2 years. So is Donald Trump looking at workarounds to, essentially shadow the Federal Reserve in terms of policy?
That's a really interesting word you just used, shadow. So there's a man, he's a billionaire, his name's Scott Bessent, and he spoke to Barron's magazine recently, and he put together the idea of having a shadow Federal Reserve chair. Now, this idea is that Donald Trump, he would nominate a Jerome Powell successor as soon as he enters the Oval Office. Thereby, everyone focuses mainly on what this incoming chair would say, as opposed to what Jerome Powell would do over the next 2 years. So that is quite a coincidence as you're using the word shadow. Now, when it comes to Jerome Powell, he's slashing interest rates. If you look at the summary of economic projections and all the commentary coming from both Jerome Powell and his colleagues, they're lowering interest rates. That is the objective right now. And they said that if the labor market suddenly weakens out of nowhere, then they're going to be more aggressive in cutting interest rates. So the Fed is lowering interest rates. The Fed is doing exactly what Donald Trump would want to happen. And now, considering there's a lag effect in monetary policy, these rate cuts, despite the grievances by Trump and his allies, it's perfect timing because by the time he enters the Oval Office, the lag effect is usually between 4 and maybe 24 months. Though there's debate on that, which you can read at LibertyNation.com, of course. But overall, this unwinding of restrictive monetary policy is going to benefit the Trump administration when he in the early years of the second term.
Yeah, I think that's it's going to. Yeah, it looks like it will sort of catch him on the upswing, combined with the other things that he's going to do. That he says that he's going to do, such as cutting gas prices in half, things like that. I think that will essentially have a cumulative positive impact all around. Your thoughts?
There's a but, though. There is a but.
Sure.
So Powell was asked about how a Trump presidency would impact monetary policy. So he said in the near term, the election is not going to affect the Fed's economic outlook. There's a but to that. He said that, but if, let's say, the administration's policies of tariffs were to create the expected inflationary effect, then the Fed may have to respond by either hitting the pause button on rate cuts or perhaps even imposing rate hikes. Now Jerome Powell, he said that it's very likely that the Fed's going to start raising rates, but all the market watchers and economists say that is a possibility if the aggressive tariff introductions by the second Trump term will lead to price pressures. Though that, of course, is a broader conversation, which we touched upon other than
We'd actually discussed what we were going to discuss before recording this, and we thought, should we talk about tariffs? And we thought, that could be, that's a bit too big of a topic for a half-hour, 40-minute show. But keep your eyes peeled on libertynation.com, and we will have some fun back and forths on the tariff conundrum there for you. Andrew, one more question. We've seen, actually, briefly on tariffs, we have seen certain areas of the market move towards onshoring already, haven't we? Now, that's obviously not going to be the whole picture for tariffs, but things are starting to happen in the economy now already in anticipation. So it's essentially they're trying to future-proof themselves. Is that about right?
Okay, so, I mean, we can go into history of it in the last few years, but I'll go to the most recent news story, and that came from Steve Madden. Now, Steve Madden is a $3 billion shoe company. They had a recent earnings results phone call, and the CEO, he said, you know what, in preparation of these tariffs, we're going to start trimming our sourcing to China by 75%, or sorry, 2/3 by next year. So a lot of that sourcing is going to either go back to the United States or other regional countries. And that's been the trend since the pandemic when other countries wanted to diversify their supply chains.
Well, I think that's something that everybody really misses is if you have a globalized supply chain, you're subject to global issues. And yes, you can get things cheaper, but there's also that risk that you're not going to get these things at all, or you're going to be held hostage over them. And we've seen that with most specifically medicines not being made in the United States, which is a huge national security issue. But we will continue this conversation on tariffs on the page at libertynation.com. Andrew Moran, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, sir.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.